There's a unique kind of loneliness that can only be found in the driver's seat, on a dark highway miles from anywhere. The hypnotic glow of the dashboard, the endless white lines disappearing into the black, and the chilling realization that you are utterly, completely alone. But what if you're not? What if the headlights that appear in your rearview mirror aren't just another traveler? Tonight, we journey down those deserted roads with 6 true stories from people who discovered what else is out there, waiting in the dark. For our first leg of the journey, we explore the unsettling moments when the technology you trust, and the very road beneath your wheels, seems to have a mind of its own. We place our faith in the calm digital voice of our GPS. It's a lifeline in unfamiliar territory, a promise of safe passage. But that faith shatters when you realize the machine isn't taking you to your destination. It's taking you to its destination. My name is Maya. I was a college student, driving the long 8 hours home for Thanksgiving. The interstate was a familiar ribbon of gray asphalt, a route I could drive in my sleep. This time was different. Just after sunset, a jackknifed semi had turned the highway into a motionless river of red taillights. The minutes stretched into an hour of absolute stillness. The only movement was the ghost of my own breath fogging the inside of the windshield and the steam rising from my car's vents into the biting November air. Frustration was building into a quiet, simmering rage. I was trapped. That's when my phone, my glowing oracle mounted on the dashboard, chimed with a synthetic hope. Faster route available, it announced. Saves an estimated 90 minutes. A cold flicker of common sense, the voice of my father in my head, warned me against veering off into unknown territory after dark. But the thought of seeing my family, of escaping this steel prison, was a siren's call. Impatience won the battle against reason. I took the next exit, escaping the interstate's paralysis and diving headfirst into the unknown. The first 20 minutes were a blissful relief. Winding paved roads, the occasional flicker of a farmhouse light in the distance making the world feel safe, inhabited. I felt clever, like I had found a secret cheat code. But then the smooth pavement ended abruptly without warning, turning to loose gravel that crunched and popped under my tires like driving on old bones. The car began to fishtail slightly, forcing me to slow down. The gravel soon gave way to a packed dirt path, barely wide enough for my sedan, with deep, muddy ruts that grabbed at my tires like greedy hands, pulling the steering wheel from my grip. My cell signal, my digital umbilical cord to the civilized world, dropped from 3 bars to 1, then to the horrifying finality of no service. The silence in the car was suddenly heavier. A cold, heavy knot of pure dread tightened in my stomach. This was a mistake. A terrible, irreversible mistake. I slowed to a crawl, searching for any spot wide enough to turn back, but the path was a narrow trench carved through the woods. It was then the GPS voice spoke up, its tone flatter now, colder, stripped of its usual synthetic warmth. Recalculating. In 200 feet, turn left onto the old Miller path. It wasn't guiding me back. It knew I had lost my signal. It was leading me deeper in, using a name I knew would not be on any modern map. I ignored it. But the path was too narrow, flanked by dense, dark woods whose trees clawed at my windows with their branches. They formed a canopy that stitched itself shut above me, swallowing the last of the evening light and plunging the world into a deep, oppressive, inky blackness. My headlights barely pushed back the suffocating wall of trees ahead. The only sound was the groan of my car's suspension and the frantic thumping of my own heart against my ribs. After another mile that felt like a lifetime, the dirt path opened suddenly into a clearing. And in that clearing was a town. It wasn't on any map I knew. It was ancient, dilapidated, a corpse of a place. Weather-beaten storefronts bore faded, peeling paint that once read General Mercantile and Barber. The buildings were leaning, their spines broken, their angles subtly wrong, as if built by someone with a warped sense of geometry. Windows were boarded up or stared out like the vacant eyes of skulls. In the center of the town square, a single rusty swing set creaked rhythmically in a wind I couldn't feel, a lonely metallic heartbeat in the dead air. My car rolled to a stop. The engine's hum then vanished, dying without a sputter, leaving a silence so absolute it felt like pressure against my eardrums. And then the GPS, its screen the only light in the suffocating darkness, spoke one last time. Its voice was perfectly clear now, devoid of any distortion, laced with a hint of something that sounded chillingly like satisfaction. "You have arrived." As the words faded, the phone screen went black. My headlights flickered violently and went out. I was plunged into a darkness so complete it felt like a physical weight. I twisted the key. Nothing. The radio was dead. My phone was a black, useless brick. Blind panic began to claw its way up my throat. I was about to throw the door open and run to anywhere when I saw it. A single, soft flicker of light in the window of the old general store. A warm, yellow light as if someone had just lit a candle. And in that light, I saw a silhouette pass in front of it. A tall, thin shadow that moved with a slow, deliberate grace. Then another light appeared in the window of the house next to it. And another and another. One by one, in the windows of the dead, silent buildings, lights were appearing, a silent, coordinated awakening. The entire town was coming alive, aware that its long wait was over. Finally had a visitor. And from the oppressive silence outside, I heard a new sound multiplied. The slow, heavy scrape of multiple doors being unbolted, followed by the crunch of a single footstep on the gravel street. Then another. They were coming out. I knew then, with a certainty that stopped my heart, that the route hadn't been a shortcut. It was a lure, and I had arrived. Every used car comes with a history, a faint echo of its previous owner. Usually it's nothing more than a forgotten receipt. For this driver, the echo of the person who sat in his car before him wasn't so faint, and it certainly wasn't finished with its journey. My name is Alex. I had just bought my first car, a used sedan that was only a few years old but felt brand new to me. The dealer was a bit vague about the previous owner, just a tight-lipped comment about them leaving town in a hurry. He added with a forced smile, "Cleaned up nice though. You'd never know." The words felt heavy, implying there had been something to clean up. But the price was right, and the car still had that faint new car smell, mingled with a subtle, almost unidentifiable trace of lavender perfume. I spent that first weekend scrubbing it, trying to erase the last echoes of a stranger's life. That's when I found the photograph, tucked deep under the passenger seat, bent and faded. It was a picture of a woman, maybe in her late 50s, whose eyes weren't just sad, they were pleading, staring out from the glossy paper as if trying to convey a desperate, silent message. She was standing in front of a small white house with a distinctive, bright red door. The photograph itself felt cold to the touch, unnaturally so. It felt strangely intimate, like holding a secret. I put it in the glove compartment, feeling an odd urge to get it out of sight. A few weeks later, I was driving home late from a double shift. It was after midnight, the city streets deserted, washed in the lonely, buzzing orange glow of the streetlights. The wet asphalt reflected the traffic lights that changed from green to red for a city of ghosts. The car grew cold, a damp, penetrating chill that had nothing to do with the weather outside. Then I heard it. A whisper. It was so faint, a mere sigh of a sound, that I dismissed it as the hiss of the tires on the wet road. But then I heard it again, a little clearer, just as I was approaching an intersection. "Turn left." I slowed the car, my brow furrowing. It was a woman's voice, soft and breathy. It seemed to come from right behind my ear, so close I almost felt the puff of air on my neck. I immediately checked my rearview mirror. The back seat was a cavern of deep, impenetrable shadow. Empty. I shook my head, my heart beating a little too fast, blaming it on exhaustion. But it kept happening. Not every night, but always when I was alone, always after dark. The whispers grew more insistent, laced with a strange impatience. Not this way, you missed it. They were no longer just directions. They were corrections, as if I was failing a test I didn't know I was taking. And with the whispers, that faint scent of lavender would return, filling the small space of the car with a cloying, funereal sweetness. One night, the voice was clearer, laced with a tangible desperation that made the hair on my arms stand up. "Please," it whispered, a sound full of longing and regret that seemed to curl around my thoughts. "I'm so tired. I just want to see the house one more time. Please." A wave of cold, sharp fear washed over me. This wasn't in my head. This was real. I slammed on the brakes and pulled the car over to the curb, the tires screeching on the wet street. My heart was hammering in my chest like a trapped animal. I sat there under a flickering street light, the engine idling. The silence that followed was not empty, it was a pressurized silence, the feeling of an indrawn breath, of something waiting. I was about to throw the car into drive, to race home and never look back, when the voice came again. It was no longer a whisper. It was a clear, pleading voice that came directly from the passenger seat beside me, as if someone had just leaned forward. "Don't leave me here. I'm so close to home. Please take me home." I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. I could feel it. The subtle depression of the seat cushion beside me, the sudden, intense wave of lavender. I could feel the weight of a person sitting there, a physical presence in the empty space. My eyes darted to the glove compartment. The photograph. The woman with the pleading eyes. The house with the red door. I drove straight to an all-night dealership and traded the car in that very hour, taking a huge loss on it. I practically threw the keys at the bewildered salesman, ignoring his questions. I bought a brand new car, something with no history, no ghosts, something that was entirely mine. But sometimes when I'm driving alone on a quiet road late at night, I'll hear it. A faint whisper, almost lost in the sound of the engine, telling me to take the next left. And I feel my own hands wanting to turn the wheel. I think the voice wasn't tied to the car. I think, somehow, by finding that photograph, by acknowledging her story for even a second, I invited her in. And now she rides with me. And the terror isn't just that I hear her, it's that I have to actively fight the urge to obey. I'm terrified that one day, when I'm tired and my guard is down, I'll absent-mindedly follow her directions home. Because I have a chilling feeling I know exactly which house has a bright red door, and I'm terrified of what will happen when she finally arrives. The cardinal rule of the lonely road is as old as the roads themselves. You never, ever pick up a hitchhiker. But on a freezing, rain-swept night, compassion can override caution. This is the story of a driver who broke that rule and discovered that his passenger had left more than just the road behind. My name is Sarah. I was driving through the Cascade Mountains during a nasty early winter storm. The rain wasn't just falling, it was an assault, coming down in sideways sheets that hammered against the glass. The wind howled like a hungry animal, trying to peel my small car from the slick asphalt. Visibility was almost zero, my wipers fighting a frantic, losing battle against the deluge. It was the kind of night where every passing mile felt like a victory against the elements that wanted to swallow you whole. As I rounded a sharp, blind curve, my headlights cut through the gloom and landed on a figure standing on the shoulder of the road. It was an old woman, drenched and shivering, her thin, dark coat offering no protection. Her hand was held out, not in a confident thumbs up, but in a feeble, desperate plea that seemed to break through the chaos of the storm. Every instinct, every horror story my parents had ever told me, screamed at me to keep driving, to press the accelerator to the floor. Never pick up strangers. But she looked so frail, so helpless, like a forgotten ghost on the edge of the world, moments from being erased by the storm. I couldn't just leave her there. My conscience won. I pulled over, the car rocking violently in the wind. She opened the door slowly and slid in, bringing a wave of freezing air and the smell of damp earth, wet wool, and something else. Something like the cold, clean scent of a graveyard after a hard rain. She didn't say much, just whispered a thank you, her voice as thin as old, brittle paper. She gave me the name of a crossroads about 20 miles down the road, a place I had never heard of. The ride was deeply, profoundly unsettling. She just sat there, perfectly still, staring straight ahead into the storm, her hands folded primly in her lap. She didn't shiver, didn't try to warm herself, didn't even seem to breathe. She just sat. The car grew unnaturally cold, a damp, penetrating chill that sank into my bones, far colder than the winter air could account for. The heater was on full blast, but the air coming from the vents felt like it was blowing out of a tomb. I tried to make small talk, my own voice sounding unnaturally loud in the oppressive silence. "Live nearby?" I asked. She just nodded, a slow, minimal movement. "Have you been waiting long?" I pressed, desperate to hear a human sound. A long pause. "For a very long time," she whispered, her voice seeming to come from a great distance. Her stillness was unnerving. I glanced at my passenger side mirror, trying to see her reaction to a particularly strong gust of wind that shook the car. But the mirror was empty, reflecting only the dark, rain-streaked window behind the passenger seat. My heart skipped a beat. A trick of the angle, I told myself, my hands tightening on the wheel. I adjusted my main rear-view mirror. The rain-streaked back seat was visible, a mess of shadows, but the passenger seat next to me was empty in the reflection. My blood ran cold. The space where she should have been was just an empty seat. With a terror so intense it felt like my heart was being squeezed in a vice, I slowly, deliberately turned my head to the right, and she was sitting right there. Water dripped from her gray hair onto the seat, her hands were folded in her lap, and she was staring ahead, her profile illuminated by the ghostly green and red glow of the dashboard lights. She hadn't moved a muscle. She was there and she was not there. I drove the rest of the way in a state of pure, silent panic, my hands locked on the steering wheel, my eyes fixed on the treacherous road ahead, terrified of what I might see if I looked away. When we finally reached the desolate, unlit crossroad she had mentioned, I pulled over. She just got out of the car, turned to me, and for a second her eyes seemed clear, her face less worn, and said, "God bless," her voice a little stronger. Then she turned and vanished into the wall of rain and darkness. I sped away, my tires spinning on the wet asphalt. When I finally got home, shaking and soaked, I went to grab my bag from the passenger seat. The seat was soaking wet where she had been sitting, a dark, human-shaped stain on the fabric. And lying in the middle of that wet patch, gleaming in the dim interior light, was a small antique silver locket, tarnished with age. My hands trembling, I opened it. Inside was a tiny black and white photograph of the same woman, her eyes sad even then. On the back, a delicate, scrolling inscription read, "Eleanor, 1928 to 1952. A quick search online told me everything I feared to know. A young woman named Eleanor had died on that very stretch of road, in a storm just like this one, when her car broke down almost 70 years ago. She wasn't a monster. She was just a memory still trying to get a ride home. And I had been her chauffeur for the last 20 miles of her endless journey. You've made it through the first half of the journey. But the deepest darkness is found when you're forced to stop, when the hum of the engine is replaced by an unnerving silence. The next 3 stories take us to those moments, the breakdown, the wrong turn, the final stop, where leaving the safety of your vehicle is the last thing you want to do. Before we continue, leave a like and comment which story has you checking your rearview mirror. It lets the vault know which roads we should travel next. For a long-haul trucker, the CB radio is more than a tool. It's a companion, a lifeline to the living world. But on a desolate stretch of highway, sometimes other signals can break through. Signals that are older, lonelier, and broadcasting a warning that no one is left alive to heed. My name is Earl. I've been a trucker for 30 years, and in that time, you learn that the road has a memory. I've seen things out there in the deep dark that would make a sane man quit. Strange lights that dance where no town should be, shadows that dart across the road too fast to be animal. But nothing in 3 decades of staring into the abyss compares to what I heard one night in West Texas. I was hauling a load of machine parts on a stretch of highway so flat and empty the old-timers call it the void. It's not just a nickname. For 100 miles in every direction, there's nothing. No lights, no towns, no signs of life. Just the hypnotizing drone of my engine, a sound that becomes your whole world. You feel like you're piloting a tiny, lonely spaceship through a dead universe. It was about 3 a.m., that deep, dark, witching hour when the world feels thin, like you could poke a hole in it and see what's on the other side. My old Cobra CB radio, my only companion, had been silent for the better part of 3 hours, just a soft, sleeping hiss. Suddenly, it erupted with a shotgun blast of static that made me jump in my seat, my heart kicking against my ribs. It wasn't the usual rough and tumble chatter of other truckers. It was a woman's voice, faint, buried under layers of noise, laced with a panic so real it made the cold air in my cab feel like ice. "Breaker 19, is anyone out there? Can anyone hear me?" Her voice was thin and tinny, stretched and distorted by distance, like it was coming from a long way away or a long, long time ago. My first thought, prank. Some kids with a powerful rig. My second, signal bleed from a distant AM station. I grabbed my mic, my professional instincts kicking in over the sudden chill in my gut. "You got Earl on this end, little lady? Heavy haulin' westbound. What's your 20? Static was my only reply, a soft, indifferent hiss, like the universe shrugging. I adjusted the squelch, twisting the knob, trying to clean up the ghosts in the machine. "Come back now," I said into the mic, my voice steady. "Talk to me." Then her voice returned, much clearer now, so loud it was like she was in the cab with me, her frantic terror filling the small space. "He's following me, a black car, no headlights. He's been behind me for 10 miles. He just stays back there in the dark like a shark. He won't pass. Please, somebody help me." My blood ran cold. I scanned my own mirrors out of pure, dumb instinct. Nothing but miles of empty, starless darkness behind me. I keyed the mic again, my voice low and calm, the way you talk to a spooked horse. "All right, now you stay calm. Put your hazards on, tell me your last mile marker." "I'm about 10 miles east of the old county line." "I'm coming. All I got back was the hiss of static. Then her terrified voice cut through again, closer now, louder, screaming into her microphone, the sound distorted with pure animal fear. "Oh God, he's speeding up. He's pulling alongside me. I can see him, he's looking at me. He's trying to run me off the..." Her voice cut out in a sharp, guttural scream of pure terror, a sound that was immediately swallowed by something worse. It wasn't a clean crash sound. It was a brutal, mangled shriek of twisting metal, the horrifying pop of tires exploding, and the unmistakable, sickening pop and shatter of breaking glass, all compressed through the cheap speaker of my CB. It was a sound of absolute final violence. Then nothing. A silence so profound it was louder than the scream had been. The hiss of the static that came after felt obscene, indifferent. I drove the rest of my route with a knot of cold iron in my stomach. For the next hour, every flicker of a heat haze on the horizon looked like flashing emergency lights. The silence in my cab was heavy, threatening. I kept the radio on, listening to the static, half expecting, half dreading to hear her voice again. An hour later, I pulled into a dusty 24-hour truck stop, the only sign of life for 50 miles. The harsh, buzzing fluorescent lights felt like a sanctuary. I told the old guy behind the counter, a man with eyes as old and cracked as the highway itself, what I'd heard. He didn't move. He just froze, the coffee pot hovering in his hand. His face went pale, a sickly gray under the harsh lights. He just shook his head slowly and poured me a cup of black, burnt coffee, his hand trembling slightly. "You drove through the void. Around 3 a.m., wasn't it?" he asked, his voice low and raspy. I just nodded. He leaned over the counter, his voice dropping to a near whisper, like he didn't want the ghosts of the highway to hear. "Son," he said, "let me give you some advice. You hear that call again, you turn your radio off. Just turn it clean off. There's no one to help. There hasn't been for a long, long time." He took a slow breath. Truckers have been hearing her on that same stretch of road for the last 20 years. A woman in a sedan was run off the road and killed out there back in the 90s. They never caught the guy who did it. She's just still calling for help. Stuck in her last 3 minutes forever. And every night, right around 3 a.m., she makes that last call over and over into the void, hoping anyone will answer. It's the sound every late-night driver dreads. A sudden, sickening thud against the front of the car. The responsible thing to do is to stop and check. But what do you do when you get out, and the thing you hit wasn't an animal? And what if it's not dead? My name is David. I was driving back from a sales conference in the city, my mind numb from 3 days of fluorescent lights and corporate jargon. All I wanted was my own bed. Against every warning bell in my head, I decided to make good time by taking a shortcut down State Highway 87. It was a terrible decision. The road was a narrow, unlit scar carved through a dense, primeval forest. The ancient trees clawed at the night sky, forming a living wall on either side that seemed to press in on the car, swallowing the light from my high beams just a few feet from the bumper. Out of nowhere, a large, pale shape darted out from the trees. It wasn't the frantic scramble of a deer. It was a smooth, unnaturally fast, almost liquid movement. I didn't even have time to brake. My world became a violent, screaming blur of glass, asphalt, and the dark slash of trees. There was a horrible, heavy thud, a sickening, wet sound of metal meeting something solid and yielding, and my car swerved violently, the seatbelt digging into my chest and locking my breath in my lungs. I wrestled the wheel back under control and skidded to a stop on the gravel shoulder, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I sat there for a full minute, frozen, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. The only sound was my own ragged, panicked breathing and the frantic tick-tick-tick of the cooling engine. The silence of the forest outside wasn't peaceful. It was a pressurized, listening silence, as if the entire woods had stopped to watch what I would do next. I grabbed the heavy mag light from my glove compartment, its cold, metallic weight a pathetic comfort, and forced my door open, my legs feeling like jelly. The air was cold and smelled of pine needles and damp earth. I was praying to find a deer, maybe a bear, lying broken on the road. I swept the powerful beam of the flashlight across the asphalt. Nothing. The road was empty. But the front of my car was a disaster. A huge, deep dent was punched into the passenger side fender, as if it had been hit with a wrecking ball. The headlight was shattered. Then I saw the trail. A thick, dark, syrupy liquid, almost black in the flashlight beam, led from the point of impact off the road and into the impenetrable darkness of the woods. I leaned closer, a wave of nausea hitting me. It didn't smell like blood. It smelled coppery, yes, but also like ruptured batteries, ozone after a lightning strike, and damp, rotting soil. It was the smell of something utterly, fundamentally alien. A sound from the forest made me freeze in place, my heart leaping into my throat. It was a wet, cracking sound, not like sticks breaking. It was the sound of a large joint being pulled from its socket. It was followed by a low, guttural moan that wasn't a sound of pain, but of annoyance. A frustrated, impatient sound. Against every instinct for self-preservation, a morbid curiosity I will curse for the rest of my days pulled me forward. I pointed my flashlight into the trees, following the dark trail. The beam landed on something crouched at the base of a pine tree about 30 feet in. My mind refused to process it. It was pale and hairless, its skin stretched so tight over its frame that it looked like polished bone in the harsh light. Its limbs were far too long, bent at impossible, insect-like angles. It was hurt. As I watched, paralyzed with a fear so profound it felt like ice flooding my veins, it performed an act of unimaginable horror with a casual, deliberate slowness. It reached down with one long, spindly arm and grabbed its own leg, which was bent backwards at the knee. There was a wet, sickeningly loud pop that echoed through the dead silent woods as it seemed to wrench the bone back into its proper place. It let out another low moan, this one of grim satisfaction. Then its head, which had been facing away from me, began to turn. It moved with an unnatural smoothness, like a turret swiveling to acquire a target. It didn't have a human face. It was a smooth, pale, ovoid surface devoid of any features. No nose, no mouth, just a blank canvas of skin. And from that blank surface, two sickly, luminous yellow eyes ignited, glowing with their own internal, predatory light. They stared directly at me. It wasn't just seeing me, it was assessing me. That look conveyed a message, a cold, ancient intelligence that ripped through my soul. It was a look that said, "You interrupted me. You hurt me. And I will remember you." I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I just ran. My hands were useless claws, fumbling with the keys, my heart threatening to explode in my chest. The engine roared to life. I drove, not stopping, not even looking in the rearview mirror, until the sun came up and the terrifying darkness of Highway 87 was just a bad memory. I traded in my car the next day for a different model, a different color. I don't take shortcuts anymore. I don't even drive at night if I can help it. Because sometimes in the dead of night, when the house is quiet, I'll see a flash of sickly yellow light at the edge of my vision, just for a second, and my blood runs cold. I know it wasn't just a random encounter. It was an introduction. And I think, sooner or later, it will come looking to finish our conversation. A brightly lit diner on a dark road is a beacon of safety, a promise of hot coffee and a moment's peace. But some lights are not meant to welcome you. Some are meant to be a trap. This is a story about a driver who pulled into a diner where he was the only thing on the menu. My name is Tom. I wasn't just running on fumes, I was running on the memory of fumes. My body was a numb automaton, my soul a frayed wire humming with exhaustion. I was on the last leg of a cross-country drive, and the highway hypnosis wasn't just setting in, it had taken the wheel. The white lines of the road were blurring into a single hypnotic stream, and phantom shapes, the ghosts of deer and shredded tires, darted in the periphery of my vision. It was nearly 4 a.m., the hour of the wolf, when the world feels thin and reality is negotiable. It was then I saw it, shimmering in the distance like a heat mirage on a cold night. A classic retro diner, a wound of pink and blue neon bleeding into the oppressive darkness. A buzzing sign read, "The Last Stop." The name was both a promise and a threat. It looked like an oasis of light and warmth in an ocean of nothingness. I pulled in. The parking lot was completely empty, a vast, silent stage of cracked asphalt waiting for its first actor. A sane man would have kept driving. But sanity had left me miles ago. All that remained was a ghost running on fumes, and all I needed was coffee. I pushed the door open, a small bell chiming with a sound that felt too loud, too cheerful for the dead silence inside. The place was spotless, unnaturally so. The air was thick with the sterile, chemical scent of bleach, with only the faint, bitter ghost of coffee brewed hours ago underneath. The chrome gleamed under the harsh, humming fluorescent lights. The red vinyl booths were flawless, not a crack or tear in their perfect, blood-red sheen. There wasn't a single dust mote dancing in the air. It felt less like a place of business and more like a museum exhibit of a diner. The silence was the main thing, a profound, humming quiet broken only by the low thrum of the refrigerators. And there were no customers. Just a single waitress behind the counter, a woman with a beehive hairdo and a smile that was just a little too wide, a little too bright. Her movements were too smooth, too economical, as if she were a flawless animatronic. She slid a menu in front of me without a word. It was a single laminated page with only one item listed in elegant, looping script: the Traveler's Special. I asked what it was. "It's everything you need," she said, her smile never faltering, her voice smooth and even, without any real warmth, like a pre-recorded message. "And it comes with coffee." I was too exhausted to question the strangeness of it all. The coffee she brought was the best I'd ever tasted. Rich, dark, and impossibly warm. But as I drank it, a strange, pleasant lethargy washed over me. The warmth spread not just in my stomach, but through my veins, a heavy, pleasant poison. My limbs felt like lead, my thoughts, once racing with exhaustion, grew thick and slow, drifting like smoke in a windless room. This must be what true relaxation feels like, I thought, a foolish, final contentment. I glanced up at the classic cat-shaped clock on the wall, its tail meant to be ticking back and forth. But it wasn't. The cat's plastic tail was frozen mid-swing. The second hand was a thin red line painted onto the face, utterly still. Time itself had stopped in this place. A tiny, cold sliver of pure adrenaline cut through my pleasant haze. "I should get going," I said, my voice sounding distant and slurred, the words thick in my own ears. "Oh, but you haven't finished your special yet," the waitress said. Her smile was still there, but her eyes were cold and dark, like polished stones, reflecting the diner lights but generating none of their own. I tried to stand up, my legs unsteady, my body refusing to obey. The soft vinyl of the booth seemed to cling to me, holding me in a gentle, cold embrace. With a surge of pure terror, I forced myself to look out the large front window to my car, to the road, to freedom. And my blood turned to ice. My car wasn't there. The parking lot had dissolved like a mirage in reverse. The highway had unraveled into nothing. Outside the diner's gleaming windows, there was only an endless, silent, starless black void. A perfect, featureless nothingness. I spun back to face the waitress, a silent scream trapped in my paralyzed throat. Her smile didn't just stretch. It unhinged, the corners of her mouth seeming to crawl towards her ears, revealing too many teeth, all perfectly white. "Don't worry," she said, her voice a chorus, echoing as if in a vast empty hall and from inside my own skull. "Everyone who stops here is a traveler. And everyone gets their special. Eventually." The last thing I remember is seeing my own terrified reflection in her black, bottomless eyes, and then sinking back into the soft vinyl of the booth, unable to move, unable to scream as she walked towards me from the kitchen, a fresh, steaming plate in her hands. Now, I just sit here at my table watching the road that isn't there, waiting for the next tired traveler to see the welcoming lights of the last stop. And I smile when they come in, a wide, bright, welcoming smile. It's not my smile anymore, but it's the one I have to wear, because that's my job now. I'm the new waiter. The waitress, Eleanor, says I'm doing a fine job. She's been here a very long time. And the coffee is always fresh. The engine is off. The journey is over. But the lonely road has a long memory, and it never forgets those who travel it. The figures you see in the periphery, the strange lights in the sky, the feeling of being watched. They linger long after you've locked your front door. If you survive the drive with us, make sure you're subscribed to Shadow Vault Stories. There are always more dark roads to travel. Until next time, when you're driving alone at night, tell yourself it's just your headlights playing tricks on you. But never ever pull over to see what's waiting on the side of the road.